The sky above New York City turned black at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. It was not a cloud or a storm. It was something far worse. Massive ships, each one bigger than a mountain, appeared from nowhere and blocked out the sun. Within seconds, the same darkness fell over London, Tokyo, Sydney, and every major city on Earth. The Vraxian Dominion had arrived. Nobody understood what was happening at first. People stood in the streets and pointed at the sky. They took photos with their phones. Some laughed nervously, thinking it might be some kind of movie filming or government experiment. But then the ships opened fire, and the laughter stopped forever. Beams of green light cut through the atmosphere and struck the ground with the force of nuclear bombs. Buildings turned to dust in an instant. Entire neighborhoods vanished in flashes of blinding light. The oceans boiled where the beams touched water. Mountains crumbled. Cities burned. The military tried to fight back. Fighter jets launched from every base on the planet. Missiles flew toward the alien ships. But nothing worked. The weapons bounced off invisible shields like raindrops hitting glass. The aliens did not even slow down their attack to deal with the resistance. To them, human weapons were less than insects. In the first hour, 1 billion people died. By the end of the first day, that number had grown to 3 billion. The Vraxians did not communicate. They did not make demands. They did not explain why they were doing this. They simply continued their systematic destruction of human civilization. With the cold efficiency of someone cleaning dirt from their boots, Daniel Vance watched the destruction from a small window on the colony ship Wanderer, which floated in space 3 months away from Earth. He was 42 years old with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too much. As the captain of the Wanderer, he was responsible for 12,000 colonists who had volunteered to start a new life on a distant planet called Kepler-442b. Now, he was watching his homeworld die. The communication officer, a young woman named Susan Miller, sat at her station with tears streaming down her face. The radio channels were filled with screaming, prayers, and desperate pleas for help that nobody could answer. One by one, the voices went silent as the cities that broadcast them were destroyed. "Captain," Susan said with a shaking voice, "the last signal from Earth just cut out. There is nothing left." Daniel did not respond. He could not find words for what he was feeling. 7 billion people. His mother, his brother, his childhood friends, his old colleagues, everyone he had ever known who did not board this ship. All of them were gone. "What do we do now?" asked the ship's pilot, a man named Henry Cole. His hands were trembling on the controls. Daniel forced himself to think clearly. The pain would have to wait. Right now, he had 12,000 people depending on him to make the right choice. "Change course," he said quietly. Henry looked confused. "Change course to where?" "Our destination is Kepler-442b. That plan hasn't changed." "The plan has changed completely," Daniel replied. "If we go to Kepler-442b and start a colony, those aliens will eventually find us. They found Earth. They will find any planet we settle on. We need to hide." "Hide where?" Daniel walked to the navigation console and pulled up a star map. He pointed to a region of empty space between 2 distant galaxies. There, the void. No stars, no planets, no reason for anyone to look there. "We drift through the darkness, stay quiet, and survive." Susan wiped her eyes. "For how long?" "For as long as it takes." Daniel turned to face his crew. "Listen to me carefully. What happened today cannot be forgotten. Those aliens killed everyone we loved. They destroyed everything we built. But we are still alive. 12,000 human beings are still breathing, still thinking, still hoping. And as long as we exist, humanity exists." He paused, his jaw tightening with determination. "We are going to survive. We are going to learn. We are going to build. And one day, when we are strong enough, we are going to go back and make them pay for what they did. I do not care if it takes 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years. We will have justice." The crew stared at him in silence. Then slowly, Henry nodded and began entering new coordinates into the navigation system. The Wanderer turned away from its original destination and headed into the darkness between stars. For the first 50 years, the colonists lived in fear. They kept the ship running on minimal power to avoid detection. They rationed food and water carefully. They had children and taught those children everything they knew about science, engineering, and history. Most importantly, they taught them about Earth and what the Vraxians had done. After 100 years, the original colonists began to die of old age. But their children continued the mission. They improved the ship's systems. They developed new technologies. They found asteroids in the void and mined them for resources to build more ships. After 1,000 years, the human fleet had grown to 20 vessels. The population had increased to 50,000. Scientists had made breakthroughs in weapons technology and faster than light travel. But they still were not strong enough. After 10,000 years, the fleet numbered 100 ships and 200,000 people. They had developed energy shields, advanced artificial intelligence, and medical technology that extended human lifespans to 300 years. But they still waited. After 60,000 years, everything changed. Commander Lisa Grant woke from cryogenic sleep and opened her eyes to a new reality. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She had gone to sleep as a junior officer. She woke up as the leader of humanity's final mission. The ship's eye, a calm voice named Oracle, briefed her on the current situation. The human fleet now numbered 300 advanced warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. The population had grown to 5 million, spread across dozens of massive generation ships. Their technology had advanced so far beyond what the Vraxians possessed that comparison was almost meaningless. Lisa walked to the bridge of the battleship Reckoning and looked out at the assembled fleet. Thousands of lights blinked in the darkness, each one representing a ship filled with humans who had inherited the same mission passed down for 60,000 years. "Oracle," she said, "set a course for Vraxian space." "Course confirmed," the AI replied. "Estimated arrival, 14 months. Lisa smiled coldly. Somewhere out there, the Vraxians were living their comfortable lives, having long forgotten the primitive species they had exterminated so many centuries ago. They probably did not even remember the name Earth. She was going to make sure they remembered it forever. The Vraxian border station called Sentinel-7 had been floating in the same position for 3,000 years. Nothing interesting ever happened there. The station watched over a region of space that contained no habitable planets, no valuable resources, and no intelligent life. It was the most boring assignment in the entire Vraxian military. Commander Krath had been stationed here for 20 years, and he hated every single day of it. He was an old Vraxian with faded green scales and tired eyes. His species lived for about 500 years, and he had spent the worst 20 of his life staring at empty sensor screens and filing paperwork. "Another quiet day," he muttered to himself as he reviewed the morning reports. Nothing to report. No ships detected. No signals received. Just endless darkness in every direction. His junior officer, a young female named Senna, was equally bored. She spent most of her shifts playing games on her personal console and dreaming about being transferred somewhere more exciting. "Commander," she said suddenly, her voice changing from bored to confused, "I am getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors. Krath did not even look up from his reports. Probably just space debris. Run a diagnostic. I already did. The readings are accurate. Senna leaned closer to her screen, her multiple eyes narrowing with concentration. I am detecting multiple ships. Large ones. They are coming from the dead zone. Now Krath looked up. The dead zone? That is impossible. Nothing lives in the dead zone. We sterilized that entire region 60,000 years ago. I know, Commander. But the sensors do not lie. I count. 300 vessels. Unknown configuration. They are heading directly toward us. Krath stood up and walked to Senna's station. He looked at the sensor data himself, and his scales turned pale with shock. The ships were real. They were big. And they were coming fast. Contact headquarters, he ordered. Tell them we have an unknown fleet approaching our border. Request identification protocols and backup. Senna began transmitting, but before headquarters could respond, something else happened. A message came through on all frequencies. A female voice speaking in a language that the Vraxian translation system struggled to process. Attention, Vraxian vessel. This is Commander Elisa Grant of the human fleet. Krath felt his blood turn cold. Human. He knew that word. Every Vraxian knew that word, even though most thought it was ancient history. Humans were the species that had been exterminated 60,000 years ago during a routine sterilization operation. They were supposed to be extinct. The voice continued. 60,000 years ago, your people destroyed our homeworld. You murdered 7 billion of our kind. You thought you had killed us all. You were wrong. We survived. We grew strong. And now we have returned for justice. Krath could not move. He could barely breathe. You have 1 hour to evacuate your station. After that hour, we will destroy it. This is your only warning. Do not expect mercy. You showed us none. The transmission ended. Senna looked at her commander with terror in her eyes. What do we do? Krath's train took over. He pushed aside his fear and started giving orders. Power up all defensive systems. Charge the main weapons. Send an emergency signal to every fleet in the sector. Tell them we are under attack by a hostile force. Should we evacuate? Krath hesitated. Part of him wanted to run, but he was a Vraxian military officer. His people had dominated this region of space for 100,000 years. They had crushed every enemy they had ever faced. How could he run from a species that they had destroyed so long ago? No, he said firmly. We stand and fight. These humans may have survived, but they are still primitives. They cannot possibly match Vraxian technology. On board the Reckoning, Lisa Grant watched the Vraxian station through her ship's advanced sensors. She could see everything happening inside, from the panicked officers to the weapons slowly powering up. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They are not evacuating, reported Kevin Park, her tactical officer. He was a thin man with quick eyes and steady hands. They are preparing to fight. Their choice, Lisa replied. How long until the hour is up? 47 minutes. Lisa nodded and turned to her communications officer. Patricia Cole. Patricia was older than most of the crew, with gray streaks in her brown hair and a calm demeanor that never changed, no matter how tense the situation became. Patricia, I want you to record everything that happens here. This is the beginning of our campaign. Future generations need to see how it started. Recording now, Commander. The hour passed slowly. Lisa used the time to position her fleet in optimal attack formation. 300 ships spread out in a crescent shape, their weapons charged and ready. The Vraxian station looked tiny and fragile, compared to the wall of human warships surrounding it. When the countdown reached 0, Lisa gave a simple order. Fire. The human fleet unleashed weapons that the Vraxians could not understand. Concentrated beams of antimatter struck the station's shields and passed through them like they did not exist. Missiles that bent space itself around their warheads slammed into the hull and tore it apart from the inside. The station's own weapons fired back, but the human ships simply moved out of the way, their advanced engines allowing them to dodge with impossible speed. The battle lasted 11 seconds. When it was over, the Vraxian station was nothing but expanding debris and cooling plasma. Commander Krath, Senna, and everyone else on board had been vaporized so quickly that they probably never even knew what hit them. Kevin looked at his display. Target destroyed. No survivors. Lisa felt no joy, no triumph. Only grim satisfaction that the mission had begun. Good. Now we wait. Wait for what? Reinforcements. I told them to call for help. I want their military to come to us. Every ship they send here is one less ship defending their homeworld. 3 hours later, the first Vraxian battle group arrived. 50 warships dropped out of faster than light travel and immediately began scanning for the enemy that had destroyed their station. They found the human fleet waiting for them in perfect formation. Lisa opened a channel. Vraxian vessels. This is Commander Lisa Grant. Your station attacked us after we offered them the chance to evacuate peacefully. We responded with appropriate force. You now have the same choice. Withdraw from this system or share their fate. The Vraxian commander, a proud officer named Admiral Vross, responded with contempt. You dare threaten the Vraxian Dominion? We are the masters of this space. You are nothing but ghosts of a dead species, prepared to be exterminated again. His fleet opened fire. Lisa sighed. They never learn. All ships, engage. The second battle was slightly longer than the first. It took almost 3 minutes. When it ended, all 50 Vraxian ships had been destroyed. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Patricia looked up from her console. Commander, we are receiving transmissions from deeper in Vraxian space. They are calling for more reinforcements. Much larger numbers this time. How many? Initial estimates suggest 5,000 ships. Kevin's eyes widened. 5,000 against our 300? That is not good odds. Lisa smiled thinly. You are thinking like the old humans. The ones who died 60,000 years ago. We are not them anymore. 5,000 Vraxian ships are not a threat. She turned to face her crew. They are an opportunity. Send the message to their high command. Tell them exactly where we are. Tell them to bring everyone they have. I want them to throw their entire military at us. Why? Kevin asked. Because the more ships they send to fight us here, the fewer they will have to defend their homeworld when we arrive. Lisa's eyes hardened. We did not spend 60,000 years preparing for a fair fight. We spent 60,000 years making sure we would win. The human fleet settled into position and waited for the enemy to come. The Vraxian High Council had not felt fear in over 10,000 years. They were the rulers of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. They had conquered dozens of species and controlled thousands of star systems. Nothing threatened them. Nothing challenged them. They were untouchable. Until now. Grand Counselor Veth sat at the head of the long table, his ancient scales almost white with age. He was over 400 years old and had served on the council for most of his life. In all that time, he had never seen his fellow counselors look so afraid. Explain this to me again, he said slowly, his voice heavy with disbelief. You are telling me that a species we exterminated 60,000 years ago has somehow returned and is destroying our fleets? Grand Admiral Keth stood before the council, his military uniform decorated with medals from 100 victories. But today, his posture was not proud. Today, he looked like a soldier who had seen something that shook him to his core. It is true, Grand Counselor. The humans survived. We do not know how. Perhaps a colony ship escaped before we completed the sterilization. Perhaps they had settlements we did not detect. Whatever the explanation, they are here now, and they are more powerful than anything we have ever faced. How powerful? Asked another counselor, a female named Drya, who controlled the Empire's economy. Keth pulled up a holographic display showing battle recordings. We have engaged them 7 times in the past month. We have lost over 200 ships. They have lost none. None? Veth's multiple eyes widened. That is impossible. I watched the recordings myself, Grand Counselor. Their ships move in ways that should not be physically possible. Their weapons pass through our shields like they are not there. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them. It is as if they are fighting with technology from thousands of years in the future. The council chamber fell silent. Every member was thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Finally, Drya spoke. Perhaps we should negotiate. Offer them something in exchange for peace. Negotiate? Veth slammed his fist on the table. The Vraxian Dominion does not negotiate with inferior species. We did not build this empire by showing weakness. With respect, Grand Counselor, Keth said carefully, calling them inferior may no longer be accurate. Their technology surpasses ours in every measurable way. If they wanted to, they could probably reach our homeworld within weeks. Then we stop them before they get there. Veth stood up, his old body straightening with determination. Admiral, gather every warship in the Empire. Every cruiser, every destroyer, every fighter. Bring them all to Nexus Prime. That is the gateway to our core systems. If these humans want to reach our homeworld, they will have to go through Nexus Prime first. How many ships are we talking about, Grand Counselor? All of them. 5,000. 10,000. However many we have. Keth hesitated. And if that is not enough? Veth's eyes hardened. It will be enough. No species has ever defeated the Vraxian Dominion in open battle. These humans may have tricks, but they only have 300 ships. We will overwhelm them with numbers. Now go. 2 weeks later, the largest fleet in Vraxian history assembled above Nexus Prime. 5,200 warships formed a defensive sphere around the strategic planet. Their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Keth commanded from his flagship, a massive vessel called the Dominator that was larger than some small moons. He watched his sensors carefully, waiting for the human fleet to appear. Admiral, his tactical officer, reported, "We are detecting ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. It is them. 300 vessels, exactly as reported." Keth studied the enemy formation. The human ships were smaller than his, but their design was elegant and strange. They did not look like any spacecraft he had ever seen. They almost seemed alive somehow, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. "Open a channel," he ordered. The female human commander appeared on his screen. She was small by Vraxian standards, barely half his height, with dark hair and eyes that showed no fear at all. She looked at him like he was already dead, and just did not know it yet. "Vraxian fleet," she said. "I am Commander Lisa Grant. You know why we are here. Your ancestors murdered our species. Your empire was built on our graves. We have come to collect what is owed." Keth tried to sound confident. "You are outnumbered 17 to 1. Human. Your technology may be advanced, but mathematics does not lie. Surrender now, and we may show you mercy." Lisa laughed. It was not a happy sound. Mercy? Did you show mercy to the children of Earth? Did you show mercy to the families who begged for their lives as your ships burned our cities? No, you showed us nothing but death. And now death has come for you. She cut the transmission. Keth turned to his officers. "All ships, attack formation." Target the human flagship and fire everything we have. 5,000 Raxian warships opened fire simultaneously. The amount of energy released in that single moment could have destroyed a planet. Beams of plasma, guided missiles, and kinetic rounds streaked toward the human fleet in an overwhelming wave of destruction. None of it hit. The human ships scattered in an instant, moving so fast that they seemed to teleport. One moment they were in front of the Raxian fleet. The next they were behind it, beside it, everywhere at once. The Raxian weapons struck empty space, where their targets had been a fraction of a second earlier. Then the humans fired back. Keth watched in horror as his ships began to explode. Not one at a time, but dozens at once. The human weapons seemed to ignore shields completely, striking directly at the hulls and reactors of Raxian vessels. His tactical display lit up with red warning lights as ship after ship was destroyed. "Return fire!" he screamed. "All ships, concentrate fire on the nearest targets." But there were no nearest targets. The human ships moved too fast to track. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the Raxian targeting systems could even register their presence. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. On board the Reckoning, Lisa watched the destruction with cold eyes. She felt no pleasure in what was happening. These Raxians had not personally destroyed Earth. They were not the ones who had murdered her ancestors. But they were the inheritors of that crime. They had built their comfortable lives on the foundation of human extinction. And that debt had to be paid. "Status report," she ordered. Kevin checked his console. "Enemy fleet reduced by 60%. We have not lost a single ship. Their formation is breaking apart. Continue the attack. Do not let any of them escape." The battle lasted 3 more hours. By the end, 4,800 Raxian ships had been destroyed. The remaining 400 were drifting without power, their crews either dead or desperately trying to repair critical systems. Admiral Keth's flagship was among the crippled vessels. Lisa had Keth brought to her ship as a prisoner. He stood before her on the bridge of the Reckoning, his proud uniform torn and burned, his scales pale with shock and defeat. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Lisa walked slowly around him, studying him like a scientist examining an insect. "You made a mistake 60,000 years ago. You killed most of us, but not all. And those who survived had one thing that kept them going through the darkness. Hatred. Pure, burning hatred for what you did. That hatred gave us purpose. It drove us to learn, to grow, to become something more than we were." She stopped in front of him. "You thought you exterminated us. Instead, you created us. The humans who died on Earth were peaceful. They were dreamers. They looked up at the stars with wonder and hope. We are not them. We are what your people made us. We are your reckoning." Keth lowered his head. "What do you want?" "I want you to deliver a message to your High Council. Tell them that in 1 year, we will come to your homeworld. Tell them to prepare however they wish. Tell them that at the end of that year, they will answer for the crimes of their ancestors." She gestured to her guards. "Put him on a shuttle and send him home. The council needs to hear this from someone who witnessed what happened here today." As Keth was led away, Kevin approached Lisa. "Commander, are you sure about giving them a year to prepare?" "That is a long time. They will build more ships." Lisa nodded. "I know, but this is not just about winning a war. This is about justice. I want them to know we are coming. I want them to feel what our ancestors felt. The fear, the helplessness, the knowledge that something terrible is approaching, and there is nothing they can do to stop it." She looked out at the debris field that had once been the pride of the Raxian military. Let them build their ships. Let them prepare their defenses. It will not matter. When the year is over, we will come for them, and nothing in this universe will be able to save them. The Vraxian homeworld had not known peace since Admiral Keth returned with his message. Fear spread through the population like a disease. Everyone had heard the stories now. Everyone had seen the recordings of the Battle of Nexus Prime. 5,000 ships destroyed by an enemy that should not even exist. In the cities, people whispered about the humans. They spoke of them like ghosts or demons, creatures from ancient nightmares that had returned to punish the living for the sins of the dead. Some refused to believe it. Some demanded that the government do something. Some simply fell into despair. The High Council chose action. Grand Counselor Veth ordered every shipyard in the Empire to work around the clock. Civilian factories were converted to military production. Resources were pulled from every colony world and funneled into building warships. Citizens who had never held a weapon were conscripted into the military and given basic training. We have 1 year, Veth told his council. 1 year to build an army that can stop these humans. I do not care what it costs. I do not care how many sacrifices must be made. The survival of our species depends on what we do in the next 12 months. The Empire responded with desperate energy. New ships rolled out of the yards at a rate that would have been considered impossible before. Old vessels that had been retired were brought back into service. Experimental weapons that had never been tested were rushed into production. Within 6 months, the Vraxian fleet had grown to 15,000 ships. By the 9th month, it reached 20,000. And still they built more, knowing that no number might be enough. Meanwhile, the human fleet did not move. They remained at the edge of Vraxian core space, watching, waiting, letting the fear do its work. Every day that passed was another day of psychological torture for the Vraxian people. On board the Reckoning, Commander Lisa Grant spent the year preparing in her own way. She studied every piece of intelligence about Vraxian defenses. She ran simulations of the coming battle. She met with her officers to discuss strategy and refine their plans, but she also struggled with questions that had no easy answers. One night, she sat alone in her quarters, looking at old photographs of Earth, images recovered from the Wanderer's archives, preserved for 60,000 years. Pictures of blue oceans and green forests. Cities full of people who had no idea what was coming. Children playing in parks that no longer existed. Her door chimed. "Come in," she said. Kevin Park entered, looking hesitant. "Commander, I hope I am not disturbing you." "No. What is it?" Kevin sat down across from her. He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I have been thinking about what happens after we win. When we reach their homeworld, what do we do to them?" Lisa set down the photographs. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do we kill them all? The way they killed us?" Kevin's voice was troubled. "There are 18 billion Vraxians on that planet. Most of them had nothing to do with what happened to Earth. They were born thousands of years after the attack. Is it right to punish them for something their ancestors did?" Lisa had been asking herself the same question for months. She did not have a good answer. "When I was young," she said slowly, "my grandmother told me stories about Earth. She was one of the original colonists who escaped on the Wanderer. She remembered the day the Vraxians came. She remembered watching from the ship's window as the planet burned." She paused, her voice catching slightly. "She told me that the hardest thing was not the destruction. It was the silence afterward. The complete absence of any response from Earth. One moment, 7 billion voices. The next moment, nothing. Just static on every channel." Kevin waited, listening. "My grandmother dedicated her entire life to one goal, making sure the Vraxians would pay for what they did. She taught me that goal. Her children taught their children. For 60,000 years, every generation passed down the same mission. Vengeance. Justice. Whatever you want to call it. Lisa stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. But here is the thing that my grandmother never talked about. What happens after? What do we become when the vengeance is complete? If we kill 18 billion Vraxians, are we any better than they were? Do we just become another species of murderers? So, what do we do? Kevin asked. Lisa turned to face him. We give them a choice. We demand unconditional surrender. We dismantle their military. We occupy their worlds. We force them to face what their ancestors did. But we do not exterminate them. Not unless they force us to. And if they fight to the last soldier, then we do what we have to do. But I will not become a monster just because they were monsters first. Our ancestors deserve better than that. We deserve better than that. Kevin nodded slowly. The crew will follow you, Commander. Whatever you decide. I know. That is what makes this so hard. They trust me to make the right choice. And I am not sure there is a right choice here. As the months passed, Lisa noticed something changing in her crew. The anger that had burned so hot at the beginning of the campaign was starting to cool. Not disappear, but transform into something different. Something more complicated. During training exercises, she overheard young officers debating the ethics of what they were about to do. Some argued that the Vraxians deserved complete destruction. Others said that genocide was wrong no matter who committed it. The conversations never reached conclusions, but they showed that the humans were thinking, questioning, not just blindly following orders. Patricia Cole came to her one evening with an interesting report. Commander, we have been monitoring Vraxian communications. Something strange is happening on their homeworld. What kind of strange? There are protests. Not large ones, but growing. Some Vraxians are arguing that their ancestors committed a terrible crime and that they should apologize and seek peace with us. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Vraxians protesting their own government? It appears so. The movement is being suppressed, of course. Their authorities are arresting anyone who speaks publicly about making peace with humans. But the fact that it exists at all is remarkable. Why is that remarkable? Patricia looked at her carefully. Because it means that not all Vraxians are the same. Some of them feel guilt for what their ancestors did. Some of them think what we are doing might be justified. She paused. It means they are capable of change. Lisa thought about that for a long time after Patricia left. The Vraxians were capable of change. Did that matter? Did it change anything about what they had to do? She did not know. But she filed the information away for later. When the year finally ended, the human fleet began its advance toward the Vraxian homeworld. 300 ships moving in perfect formation through the darkness of space, heading toward a confrontation that would decide the fate of two species. Lisa stood on the bridge of the reckoning and watched the stars slide past. Behind her, Kevin and Patricia and the rest of her crew worked at their stations, preparing for the battle that was now only days away. Commander, Kevin reported, we are receiving intelligence updates. The Vraxians have assembled approximately 23,000 ships in defense of their homeworld. They have also activated 3 orbital defense stations and a planetary shield. Lisa nodded. Good. They have had a year to prepare. Now we will see if it was enough. And if it was. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much history and carried too much weight. It will not be. They could have 1,000,000 ships. It would not matter. We did not wait 60,000 years to lose. The fleet accelerated, leaving the darkness behind and heading toward destiny. The Vraxian homeworld was called Vraxis Prime, and it was beautiful in a cold, alien way. The planet orbited a massive blue star that painted everything in pale blue light. Its surface was covered with silver cities and vast purple oceans. Towers of glass and metal reached toward the sky, monuments to a civilization that had dominated this region of space for over 100,000 years. Now that civilization faced its final test, 23,000 Vraxian warships formed defensive sphere around the planet. Behind them, 3 enormous orbital defense stations hummed with enough firepower to crack a moon in half. And covering the planet itself, an invisible shield generator created a barrier that could withstand days of sustained bombardment. The Vraxians had spent their year well. They had built everything they could build, prepared everything they could prepare. If sheer numbers and determination could win a war, they would be unstoppable. But Commander Lisa Grant was not impressed. She stood on the bridge of the reckoning and studied the enemy formation. Her 300 ships floated at the edge of the star system, a tiny force against a massive Vraxian armada. To any outside observer, the battle would seem hopelessly one-sided. The outside observer would be wrong. "Open a channel to the planet," Lisa ordered. "All frequencies. I want every Vraxian to hear this." Patricia activated the communication system, and Lisa's face appeared on screens across Vraxis Prime, in homes and offices, in military bases and government buildings. 18 billion Vraxians stopped what they were doing and listened. "People of the Vraxian Dominion," Lisa began, her voice calm and steady. "I am Commander Lisa Grant of the human fleet. 60,000 years ago, your ancestors destroyed my homeworld. They killed 7 billion of my people. They believed they had exterminated our species forever." She paused, letting the words sink in. "They were wrong. We survived. We waited. And now we have returned. Not for mindless destruction, but for justice. Your empire was built on the bones of my ancestors. That debt must be paid." She leaned forward slightly. "I offer you one final chance to end this peacefully. Surrender unconditionally. Disarm your fleet. Allow human oversight of your government. Accept responsibility for what your ancestors did. Do this, and your people will live. Your cities will stand. Your children will grow up in a changed galaxy, but they will grow up." Her eyes hardened. "Refuse, and I will break your fleet. I will disable your defenses. I will take your homeworld by force. And whatever happens after that will be on your heads, not mine." She cut the transmission. For several minutes, there was only silence. Then the response came from the High Council, broadcast to the entire fleet. "We are the Vraxian Dominion. We do not surrender to anyone, least of all to the remnants of a species that should have been forgotten long ago. Your ancestors were weak. They died easily. Come and try your luck against us. We will finish what our ancestors started." Lisa closed her eyes briefly. She had hoped, somewhere deep inside, that the Vraxians would choose peace, that they would be wise enough to recognize that they could not win this fight. But hope had always been a foolish thing where the Vraxians were concerned. "All ships," she said quietly. "Attack." The Battle of Vraxis Prime began with light. 300 human ships accelerated into the Vraxian formation, their engines leaving trails of blue fire across the darkness. The Vraxians responded with everything they had, unleashing a storm of weapons fire that would have destroyed a small fleet instantly, but the human ships were not there when the weapons arrived. Lisa had spent 60,000 years of inherited knowledge perfecting this moment. Human technology did not just exceed Vraxian technology. It operated on principles that the Vraxians could not even comprehend. Ships that could fold space around themselves. Weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Shields that did not block attacks but simply moved the ship to a location where the attack had not occurred. The Vraxian fleet began to die. Ships exploded in chains as human weapons tore through their formations. The orbital defense stations, those mighty fortresses that had never been tested in real combat, were disabled within the first hour. Their crews survived, but their weapons went dark. Their shields collapsed, and they drifted as helpless as children. The planetary shield lasted longer. It was designed to withstand sustained bombardment, and it did. For 6 hours, the human fleet poured fire into that invisible barrier while the Vraxian warships died around them. Then, Lisa ordered the deployment of a weapon that had never been used before. It was called the Remembrance. A missile that did not explode, but instead created a temporary hole in the fabric of space itself. The shield could block energy. It could block matter. It could not block a weapon that simply removed the space. Where the shield existed, the planetary shield failed. 18 billion Vraxians watched their last defense disappear and knew that nothing stood between them and the human fleet. The surviving Vraxian warships, numbering less than 500, surrendered within minutes. They had no choice. They had seen what happened to those who fought. They had seen their entire military, the largest force ever assembled in their history, reduced to debris in less than 12 hours. Lisa Grant landed on Vraxis Prime with 100,000 human soldiers. They marched into the capital city without firing a shot. The population fled before them, terrified of what these ancient enemies might do. But the humans did not come to slaughter. They came to occupy. Lisa found the High Council in their chamber, surrounded by guards who dropped their weapons the moment they saw human troops. The counselors who had been so proud, so confident in their broadcasts, now looked like what they truly were: old, frightened beings who had never imagined their empire could fall. Grand Counselor Veth fell to his knees before Lisa. "Please," he begged, "show mercy. We surrender. We will do whatever you ask." Lisa looked down at him for a long moment. This was the being who had ordered the final defense, who had refused her offer of peace, who had called her ancestors weak and deserving of extinction. Part of her wanted to kill him. Part of her wanted to make him suffer the way her people had suffered. The anger of 60,000 years burned hot in her chest, demanding release. But she was not her anger. She was more than that. "Stand up," she said coldly. Veth rose on shaking legs. 60,000 years ago, Lisa said, my ancestors begged your people for mercy. They pleaded for their lives. They offered to surrender, to serve, to do anything if only they could survive. Your ancestors gave them nothing but death. She stepped closer, her voice dropping low. I want you to understand something. Right now, I have the power to do to your people what you did to mine. I could give the order, and every living thing on this planet would die. It would take less than an hour. 18 billion Vraxians gone, just like 7 billion humans were gone. Veth trembled. Please, but I am not going to do that. Lisa stepped back. Because I am not my ancestors, and I am not yours. I did not cross 60,000 years of darkness to become a monster. I came here for justice, not revenge. She turned to address the entire chamber. Your empire is finished. Your military is destroyed. Your colonies will be occupied. You will sign articles of unconditional surrender, and you will accept human oversight of your government. Your children will learn the true history of what your ancestors did. Your society will change. She paused. And you will live. Not because you deserve mercy, but because we are better than you were. We remember what you took from us. But we also remember who we were before you came. We were builders. We were dreamers. We were a species that looked at the stars with hope instead of hunger. Lisa walked toward the exit, then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. We are still that species. We are just stronger now. And we will spend the rest of our existence making sure that what happened to Earth never happens to anyone again. She walked out into the alien sunlight of a conquered world. The war was over. Earth was gone forever, a blue marble that existed only in photographs and memories. But humanity had survived. They had crossed an impossible distance of time, transformed themselves into something that could challenge empires, and achieve justice for the billions who had died so long ago. Kevin found Lisa standing alone in a garden outside the council building. Strange purple flowers bloomed around her, filling the air with a scent that was almost like roses. "Commander," he said softly, "what happens now?" Lisa was silent for a moment, watching the alien sun move slowly across the alien sky. "Now we figure out who we are," she finally said. "For 60,000 years, we had one purpose: survival, revenge. It gave us direction. It gave us meaning. Now that it is over, we need to find a new purpose. Any ideas?" Lisa smiled faintly. It was the first genuine smile Kevin had seen from her in months. "Plenty. We have a galaxy full of species who have been living under Vraxian dominance. Some of them might need help rebuilding. Some of them might need protection from other threats. And somewhere out there, there might be other humans. Other colony ships that escaped. Other survivors who have been waiting, just like we were." She turned to face him. "We spent 60,000 years learning how to destroy. Maybe it is time we started learning how to build again." Kevin nodded slowly. "The crew will follow you, Commander. Wherever. I know." Lisa looked up at the